You say he could fight any Trump supporter?
Yeah, he says he kicked, and they're scared of him because he could fix a truck. Like they're threatened by his masculinity. I know how to fix a truck. That's what he said. I'm like, do you? I bet you don't.
The lady doth protest too much.
I bet you don't.
I fear.
I bet if I bring a broken truck to you and a bag of tools, you're
This is the guy that wants to be your vice president, calling the #1 entrepreneur in America that gay guy. You understand how weird that is? You just call him that gay guy?
That gay guy. You've never said that. You've never said that.
Adam, how do you feel about that gay guy comment that Tim Walz just made?
Joe Rogan and Patrick Bet-David just unleashed a brutal tag team beatdown on Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and it was nothing short of political carnage. Rogan came in swinging with raw, unfiltered heat, while Patrick sliced through the spin with surgical precision. From skyrocketing crime to strangled small businesses, nothing was off limits. This wasn't a debate, it was a demolition. If leadership had a scoreboard, Walz just got lit up like a 4th of July finale, and the crowd's not forgetting anytime soon.
Have you ever seen that video?
No.
This is what people love about Donald Trump. The fact that he would say this.
But unfortunately, Governor Walz isn't here himself, but don't worry, he'll say that he was. He's going to say he was. I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have, period, but then I met Tim Walz.
I just, because they're not ready for the common sense questions.
Yeah.
They're not ready for the simple questions. And when he just sat there when he had no answer, and then he didn't understand the question, and then he said, well, what do you want me to say? And I'm like, oh my God, you're never going to be president. You will not be running in 2028. You're done.
Well, I don't know whether, it was because of that question or not, if he would ever be president, because the way he handled himself in the debate with J.D. Vance, that was that's probably the worst debate performance I've ever seen, aside from Joe Biden's debate with the president, the first one where
Joe Rogan didn't just throw a jab at Tim Walz, he delivered a verbal knockout so fierce it made MMA look like a wellness retreat. Fueled by the frustration of watching bureaucrats bulldoze common sense, Rogan came out swinging with logic, sarcasm, and pure disbelief. He wasn't just the commentator, he was the fighter, the ref, and the roaring crowd all in one. And Walz? He was the poor guy who wandered into the octagon thinking he signed up for goat yoga, and got body slammed by reality instead.
We were getting scary close to people justifying totalitarian measures.
I think we need to push back on this.
Tim Walz in the campaign trail was literally saying free speech doesn't include hate speech and misinformation.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Hey man, you. Because everything that we called misinformation just a few years ago, it's on the front page of the New York Times now that we were lied to.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was the NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice.
Okay, so that was one of the ones that
That's like I think he misspoke, but to say that I'm friends with school shooters, like we hang out on the weekends. I tell them not
friends with a
school shooter.
So that was one of the moments.
Then came the pandemic policies, Rogan's first target and an absolute bullseye. He ripped through them like a grizzly tearing into a cooler, exposing the chaos and contradictions baked into every executive order. One day, businesses were shuttered tighter than Fort Knox. The next? Magically reopened, but only if they obeyed a rulebook that looked like it was written during a fever dream. Liquor stores? Wide open. Shoe stores? Sorry, too risky. Churches locked up, but casinos? Jackpot, baby. It wasn't public health, it was political roulette.
If you can play this, the audience is deeply concerned about your question. Go ahead, Rob.
What is a woman? What is a woman is the question.
I'm not sure I understand the question here.
Well, that.
So what do you want me to say?
I want you to say that a woman like me is an adult human female, that men can't become women. You guys are the party of violence, and you're the party erasing women. You don't respect us. You're a bigot. You're a misogynist. You're a sexist. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Joe Rogan torched Tim Walz's COVID-19 response, comparing it to a blindfolded man stumbling through an escape room, armed with outdated science magazines and a megaphone of terrible advice. No consistency. No logic. Just chaos dressed up as caution. Rogan ridiculed Walz's flip-flop mandates, businesses open one day, shut the next, as if decisions were made by coin toss, not data. Small businesses were choked by red tape, while big-box giants cruised. Restaurants crumbled, churches closed, yet liquor stores and casinos? Packed. Rogan saw through the facade, calling it what it was: optics over safety, control over clarity, political theater over public trust. Walz, he said, governed for headlines, not health, and Minnesotans paid the price for panic masquerading as leadership.
And he was 100% right with Tim Walz.
I know I'm doing something right when the Fox News crowd is all bitching at me like crazy. Like, I'm loving it.
That guy was almost the vice president of the United States.
Elon Musk was crying last week. Tim is being mean to me, basically, yeah.
I'm sure you've seen that thing where it shows Obama saying, I need a vice president that's dumber than me.
He may or may not have cognitive decline problems at his age, but at her age, she's just dumb.
Rogan shredded the hypocrisy of Tim Walz's pandemic playbook with his signature no-filter fury. While corporate giants kept raking in profits behind wide-open doors, small businesses were left gasping under layers of senseless restrictions. Rogan quipped it felt less like public health and more like Walz was conducting a twisted social experiment. How fast can you crush local economies while protecting aisle 6 at Walmart? It wasn't about safety. It was about control, favoritism, and a governor so out of touch he made Magic 8 Balls look decisive. When Minnesotans asked for clarity, Walz responded with a monotone drizzle of empty jargon, speeches so dry they could sand wood. He didn't lead. He recited. And in the vacuum of real leadership, confusion reigned. Rogan didn't just call out the flaws, he spotlighted the absurdity. In a moment crying out for direction, Minnesota got a fog machine behind a podium, and voters noticed, from the storefronts of Main Street to the silence of the ballot box.
His wife, soon to be, she's trying to make sense of her argument. Are you buying her argument? Go ahead, Rob.
If kids are hungry in school, what that does to brain and learning, you're not going to learn to read. So if you're talking about learning to read and closing gaps, then you better take away the barriers for that. If that's tampons, then that's tampons.
Play that one more time,
It's not even registering.
Listen, I have 4 kids, and they've made some arguments that they try to really
tried to do my homework.
Stretch and spin. Is there a greater spin job than... Rob, play that one more time, by the way. It's a little painful, but play.
Next, Rogan zeroed in on Walz's favorite shield, the experts. But instead of showing leadership, Walz played political hot potato, deflecting responsibility to a carousel of advisors who often sounded like they were guessing out loud. Rogan didn't hold back. Step 1, form a task force. Step 2, hold a Zoom call. Step 3, post a video that says absolutely nothing. Rinse. Repeat. It wasn't crisis management, it was leadership cosplay, starring a governor who couldn't read the script and forgot what play he was in. Then came the mandates, and Rogan dropped the hammer. He torched Walz's policies as designed by a stressed-out spin class instructor with a grudge. You could crowd into a casino and pull a slot handle, but God forbid you stretch in a yoga studio. Want a burger indoors with strangers? Fine. Want to lift weights solo at your gym? Shut it down. Rogan called it what it was, a chaotic collage of fear-driven rules held together with buzzwords, duct tape, and blind panic. He didn't just challenge Walz's logic, he incinerated it. Walz wasn't guiding Minnesota through a crisis. He was live-streaming confusion, in high definition, with zero buffering, and everyone felt it.
If that Tim Walz, if that guy got into power, like if Kamala died and Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, was our fucking president, you know how crazy this country would be? That weirdo who puts tampons in the boys' room, and what about our joy? Like he's a complete pathological liar, like a complete liar. Lied about being in Tiananmen Square, lied about being a fucking...
But the pandemic? That was just the opening act. Rogan drilled straight into the real fallout, Minnesota's education meltdown. Under Walz, a once proud school system didn't just stumble, it face-planted. Learning loss wasn't a byproduct, it was the headline. Kids were glued to screens, not textbooks, and parents were treated like clueless extras in a never-ending bureaucratic soap opera. Rogan torched the chaos. Walz runs education like a buggy app, constant updates, shiny new slogans, and somehow every version gets worse. It was like slapping a fresh coat of paint on a burning car and pretending the smoke was part of the experience. Then came the crime wave. Rogan didn't mince words. He likened Minnesota's surge in violence to a sequel nobody asked for, louder, bloodier, and 100% avoidable. Police were either sidelined or scapegoated, and Walz's response followed the same tired formula: release a vague statement, express mild concern, and smile for the next photo op. He could make a hostage crisis sound like a quarterly HR briefing, Rogan quipped. Zero urgency. Zero leadership. Zero clue. That's when Patrick Bet-David stepped in. No rants. No noise. Just surgical precision and cold, hard receipts. He didn't come to debate, he came to diagnose. Tim Walz governs like leadership is a side hustle, Patrick said, eyes locked. While Minnesota burned, Walz clutched a fire extinguisher labeled Equity Task Force, and refused to pull the pin.
Question for everybody. How often do you talk and say something like, hey, Vinny, you know that gay guy? You ever talk to people like that?
Never.
I'm just curious, do you talk like that? Do you talk like that? Maybe you're watching this, you're like, I don't want to admit to it because I'm sitting in the bathroom watching this, but just yesterday I told my brother that gay guy. Okay, maybe that's you. That's okay. Mm-hmm. But guess what? Don't feel bad. Because somebody that's about to be your vice president also says that regularly. He says it so regularly that it's slipped up on.
Patrick Bet-David nailed it with brutal clarity. Tim Walz is the human version of a paper jam. Clunky, slow, always in the way, and constantly needing someone else to fix the mess just to keep things running at the bare minimum. Where Minnesota needed bold action, Walz delivered delay. Every problem turned into a task force. Every crisis became a calendar invite. He didn't make decisions, he made announcements about thinking about decisions. Patrick said it best, Walz doesn't lead. He waits. Like playing chess in reverse, only making a move after your queen's already gone and your pawns are rioting. Then came the economic takedown. Under Walz, the state's budget inflated like a birthday balloon at a bureaucrat's retirement party. Taxes soared, services slowed, and businesses were trapped in a jungle of red tape so thick it needed its own zip code. Patrick painted the picture with stinging sarcasm. Want to build something? Fill out 10 forms. Want to hire someone? File a report. Want to innovate? Call a lawyer, pray to the paperwork gods, and hope Walz doesn't change the rules halfway through. And the kicker? Walz is so obsessed with looking thoughtful he ends up thinking everything to death. By the time he acts, the opportunity's gone, the damage is done, and all that's left is another carefully worded press release trying to explain why nothing changed.